From Earth, you go to the moon, represented at the United Nations. Went to NASA, and we need you. Tourism is going to be a driver. These things are happening now. It will be 100 million, and it's very emotional. I would recommend you to watch it. Hello everyone who is following us. My name is Antonino Salmeri and I'm a space lawyer. I am from Italy, but I work in Luxembourg at the university where I'm doing a PhD on the regulation of space mining. And in this job, I work with different international organizations like Space Generation Advisory Council. You can see this is the pin of Space Generation Advisory Council, which is the organization that represents the young generations in space. And this is the International Space University pin, which is a university dedicated to teach and education in space activities. And the purpose of SGC, Space Generation Advisory Council, is to connect the young generation all around the world in the space community and to represent their voice and to ensure that the viewpoint of the young generation is represented in decision making for space activities. So last year I started a new team within SGC dedicated to represent the viewpoint of the young generation for the regulation of the moon, because now countries are going to the moon again. We're going in the next decade, there are going to be many different nations that want to do different things on the moon, and so we need specific rules to ensure that everything happens peacefully and sustainably. And so with this team we have worked for 1 year in order to ensure that we develop a position as the young generation to help the peaceful and sustainable development of the moon. And the name of the team was E.A.G.L.E, like the first module that landed on the moon, the E.A.G.L.E module of the Apollo program. But also E.A.G.L.E stands for Effective and Adaptive Governance for a Lunar Ecosystem. And so with the other 13 amazing individuals that have worked with me over the last year, we now propose a report, a lunar governance report, which has the ideas of the young generation for the regulation of the moon. And we presented it at the United Nations, at the legal subcommittee of the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space in June, so actually 2 weeks ago. And now we're trying to work to make sure that states will take our opinion into account when developing the rules for lunar activities.
And will the United Nations control your project?
So it's a good question. Not necessarily control, I would not use that word, but for sure the UN will be involved, because space generation is represented at the United Nations. So actually the full name of the organization is Space Generation Advisory Council in support of the United Nations Program on Space Application. So we are indeed the young generations at the UN. So we have a dialogue with the UN, but we don't believe that the UN can be the only forum to discuss these things. We want to discuss this with everyone in the space community, and so we also encourage the UN to open a dialogue that can include also the private sector, international organizations, so that not just states, but the entire community of Earth, of humans, will be involved. So the main steps, the main decisions will be taken by the UN, because they have the legitimacy and they have the power. But we hope and we want this process to be inclusive, so we want all the voices to be heard when making the decision.
And tell us more about this international cooperation for making all subjects on the moon.
Right, so that's a very important question. Space is based on international law, so it happens based on international law regulation. It does not happen, space is not the Far West, it does not happen in a lawless place. It actually happens with rules, and these rules of international law are laid down in certain treaties, and the main principles of these treaties are international cooperation and peaceful uses. So when the United States and the Soviet Union started the space program in the 1950s, they wanted to agree on a set of rules to ensure that nobody was violating the basic principles of cooperation and peace. So even if at the time the two superpowers, they really did not talk to each other on many things, they made an exception for space. So even at that time they started to dialogue, and then as of course the situation evolved, now it's not anymore the US and the Soviet Union, it's all countries. So the purpose is really to ensure cooperation. Even if then countries want to do things separately, that can happen. but always in a cooperative environment. And for the moon, at the moment there are two main programs, let's say, planned. One is the Artemis program of the United States and other 9-10 countries, including, for instance, Italy or Luxembourg, Canada, Japan, the UAE. The purpose of the Artemis program is to bring again humans to the moon and to have them stay. So
What about Italy?
yes, Italy as well, and we will provide many modules, actually, especially the habitat module, because in Italy we are specialized in building habitat modules for humans in space, like the International Space Station. The habitat modules have been developed and designed in Italy by Thales Alenia Space. And so the purpose is to bring humans there and to have a permanent human base over the next, let's say, 10 years. The first mission is supposed to start in 2024, and then the base should be ready in 2030s. And then the other group just started. It's the International Lunar Research Station, and this is initiated by Russia and China. And recently at the Global Exploration Conference in St. Petersburg, 2 days ago, the two countries presented a roadmap to show how they want to build this lunar research station. The main purpose is to do science, and they invited, again, very openly, you can find the video online, they invited all countries to join. They really laid down steps for international cooperation. So hopefully both programs will see a lot of countries participating, and hopefully also the two programs will find a way to cooperate with each other. So international cooperation is the only way, also because the moon is a very hostile environment. It's very difficult to do things on the moon. It's very expensive. So if we don't cooperate, nobody will do anything.
What university you presented and by what country?
Right. So I personally work at the University of Luxembourg, but at the same time, the work that we presented was not done on behalf of any country. We wanted to do something that was more neutral on behalf of the entire young generations. So even though we had people from all over the world, so in our team we got 14 people, young professionals, from 10 different countries. So there were Italy, there was United States, there was France, Germany, Africa. But even though we come from these countries, we never thought of representing our country in the sense of putting our national interest first. Our goal is to be one on the moon and in space, to represent humanity and the young generation as a whole. So I would say that we are there as a group for the young generations, but our goal is to make sure that everyone can go there. So we have humanity in mind.
And what about World Health Organization? So moon has a really great influence on human body, health, mind, everything. And so what about the World Health Organization? Will it control it or not? Because it's the question about health.
Thank you. It's a very important question, actually. You have to understand that in international law, there is a division of competencies, right? So there are different UN organizations and UN entities, and each of them has to deal with their main primary purpose. So the main primary purpose of the WHO is to promote and preserve health on Earth, right? Coordinating with all different organizations. So space and regulation of space is outside their competence, right? Which is a very legal way of explaining it. I'm sorry, but this is international. This is diplomacy, so it's very formal. So the WHO does not have any direct influence on anything that is done in space, but of course, that does not mean that they don't play a role, and especially that health does not play a role. On the contrary, space agencies work with doctors, with universities, with also the WHO to cooperate in order to ensure that when we go to space, we preserve and protect the life of astronauts. This is really our main priority. We want to ensure that we send people in a safe manner, because human health and human life is the absolute priority in space. Even before the success of the mission counts saving and preserving human lives. And actually, the research that we do in space and the research that we will do on the moon will be very helpful to improve health on Earth. Because, for instance, imagine that to live on the moon, we will have to resist an incredible amount of radiation, right? Which would kill a human in few years if you stay there for long, right? And if you have no protection, you will die in 10 seconds. So it is estimated that the first thing that will kill you on the moon, if you have nothing, It's not even the oxygen lack, it's not even the pressure, it's the radiation. It will fry your brain, basically. But we're working to ensure that we develop systems that can shield the radiation so that humans can be there safely. And then maybe one day we will be able to use these technologies to cure cancer and to help fighting environment with high radiation, on Earth, like for instance Hiroshima or Chernobyl, places that we cannot live at the moment because the radiation is too strong. But maybe the technology that we use to build a base on the moon can be used on Earth to live in places that have been contaminated by high radiation levels. And so that's very fundamental. And as to the impact of the moon on Earth, that is very important as well, right? In science, actually, the moon and the Earth are part of the same ecosystem. So when you study science, when you study astrophysics, you don't study them separately. They are part of the same thing. They even move together. Earth and moon, they dance in the solar system as a one thing. And so naturally, everything that we do on the moon has an impact on Earth. And so this is part of the concept of sustainability. Sustainability means thinking in a circular way and thinking to the bigger picture. It means that if we go on the moon and we start mining the moon and we change the mass of the moon, this will also impact on the dynamics of the Earth's gravity and the moon gravity on Earth, right? The movement of the seas are influenced heavily by the sea, by the moon. And so when we go to the moon and we want to do our activities, we will also keep this in mind. We will keep in mind not only how what we do on the moon will impact the moon in itself or the people living on the moon, but also the people of the Earth. Because we want to preserve the equilibrium that we have, because we treasure it, and because this is what is making life possible on Earth. So obviously we don't want to threaten that. So there are a lot of things to keep in mind, and that's why the job of space lawyers is quite complicated. We need to put all different pieces together, but I can tell you we're trying our best.
And so are these technologies ready or not? Or they are still in the process?
You ask the lawyer this. You should ask an engineer. No, but I'm joking. Obviously, part of my job is to speak with engineers and to make sure that the technologies are ready. At the moment, not much is ready, but we are working on making them ready for when we're going to have humans on the moon. So thankfully, I
guess Elon Musk
is working on it. Actually, one of the issues at the moment with the Starship is the level of radiation shielding that it can ensure. Because one of the ideas is that the Starship, which is the big rocket ship that Elon Musk is building, Elon Musk is proposing to use it on the moon as a habitat. So people can live in the Starship. The problem with this is it sufficiently radiation proof? Is it able to shield the radiation on the moon? And so this is one of the things that they are testing at the moment. But then also at a lower level, let's say other companies, other countries, they are studying, because if you want to send humans, you need to respect a certain level of safety. So at the moment, the technologies are not entirely ready, but we are working to make sure that they are ready when we want to go, which is basically with humans at the end of this decade. And the Chinese lunar station is going to be at next decade. So we have, roughly speaking, about 10 years, which is fine, because we have the technology, we have the human resources, and we have the minds that are working on this very passionately. So for sure, we're going to have them ready. Yeah.
What about tourism on the moon?
That's another good question. Tourism is going to be a driver, in the sense that many people would really love to go on the moon, but maybe don't want to live there, right? So the thing is, can I just go and visit, and how much will it cost me? And so at the moment, it's very expensive to go on the moon, but thanks to companies.
Can you say how much? Plus, minus?
It's going to be, we're talking about more than 40 millions.
40 million?
Yeah, for one person.
For one person.
Around that. You imagine that Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin, they're doing a flight, a suborbital flight, not even like an actual flight on the moon. And they sold one ticket at an auction, and you know how much the ticket got sold? It was more than $25 million.
Oh.
And they're not even going to the moon, they're just going to the orbit and then come back.
It's okay price in St. Petersburg still.
Right.
World Championship football.
Right, so the moon at the moment is very expensive, but when we will go there regularly, the prices will decrease. I'll give you one example. Imagine that today you take a flight, right? You take a flight from St. Petersburg to Italy, you come to visit me, and you go from St. Petersburg to Rome. And then when we arrive in Rome, they take the aircraft and they destroy it. They take the flight and they destroy it. That that will make your price of the ticket become incredibly expensive, right? Because an aircraft costs about 100 million. So if the aircraft flies only once, your ticket will not be 100 euro, not even 1,000, it will be 100 million, because then the aircraft is gone. If instead, when you arrive in Rome, the aircraft will do another trip to St. Petersburg, and then the day after will do another trip to Rome, and then you can distribute the cost of the aircraft into 100,000 flights. And so each price will be different. The same will be on the moon. If we go to the moon once, and then the rocket is gone, then you pay 40 million. But if you're going to the moon regularly, if you go and then come back, you go and come back, and it's not only one person, but maybe each flight has 50 people. The first question is that making a rocket reusable is much more difficult, because an aircraft is going through the airspace, which is relatively easy, right? As soon as you know the law of physics, you can fly. But rockets, they have to go to space, and to go to space, they have to escape Earth gravity in a much more stronger way than aircraft do. And so when a rocket does that, the pieces of the rocket, they are stressed so much that they cannot be reused most of the time. They sustain a pressure, a temperature, and a level of tension that makes very difficult to reutilize them. Also, you spend a lot of money to put the rocket up, and to make it come down without falling, it's even more complicated, right? Because you want to use all your power to go up. And so you need, if you want to come down, you need to save other power to do that, right? And you need to think about the trajectory. It changes everything. So for the first 50 years of rocket activities, nobody thought that you could actually reuse a rocket. The shuttle was reusable, but the shuttle was only like the final part of a bigger vehicle, the Saturn, and they were just doing the flights all the time, and then the shuttle was coming back. But the main rocket, that was very difficult. So it took Elon Musk to actually improve and develop this technology, because he said exactly what I told you before. If each rocket is used only once, this will never be affordable. We want to make it more cheap, and so we need to reuse the rockets. So he went to NASA and he said, you guys, I had this idea, let's do it. And then they said, oh, you're crazy, it's impossible, it's also too expensive, why would you reuse a rocket? And then he said, okay, screw, then I'll do my company and then we'll reuse rockets. Yes. And then people were like, sure, bro, yeah, you'll have fun. Yeah, go, have fun. Go play with the rocket, yeah. Let me know how it goes. And it was tough. At the beginning, the first 2 launches organized by SpaceX, which was founded in 2000, and in the early 2000, one share of SpaceX, you know how much it was?
How much?
90 cents.
90 cents?
90 cents.
Why?
$90.
Why?
Yeah, because nobody believed it was a real company.
Oh.
And today, one share is 400 euro. So imagine how much money you would have had if you would have invested in this crazy company called SpaceX in the 2000s. Now you will be a billionaire. But this is the thing, the first 2 launches, they failed. The rocket exploded. And so Elon Musk was almost bankrupt. He only had money for the final launch. It was either good or go home, and it was nice, but it didn't work. And it worked. It was like, you find the video online, it's very emotional. I would recommend you to watch it. You look for the 3rd flight of the first rocket, Falcon rocket, and you see them, you see the joy of Elon Musk, like, yes, I'm not ruined, and this is going to work. And so since then, they had one success after the other. And finally, in 2015, so after almost 15 years of research and studies and money, they had the first Falcon flight returning back on Earth. So the first Falcon, the Falcon 9 in 2015, then the first vertical landing. And then since then, they've been reusing rockets all the time. And this is a geometrical progression. Once you start, once it works, it will be more and more easy. So now they took 15 years to do the first reusable flight, and then already in 2021, they have done 19. Right? So you can imagine the proportion, it's completely crazy. Because as soon as you master the technology, then you can perfect it, and the cost will be lower and lower and lower, and the technology will be much more reliable. So that's why it's very hard to make a rocket coming back from the moon. It's even more complicated. But then some rockets will not come back, they will stay on the moon and do other things. Like you can use them as habitats, for instance, and then eventually, when you want to come back, you reuse the same rocket to come back on Earth, and then from Earth, you go to the moon, and maybe some of them will not do many flights, but the idea is that a single Starship will just do back and forth from the Earth to the moon and vice versa. And then there will be those that go to Mars, which is a completely different story. So maybe
Yes,
we don't talk about it today. But yeah, the purpose is that we will try to use everything as much as possible. But to make this happen, we need to work a lot hard today.
And so, what about buildings on the moon? If tourists one day will go there, yes. So, on the moon there should be some puzzles. So, what about this?
Good
Or
question.
places
Where they can live.
Yes.
We are working on this. So there are many ideas on this. So one is the idea of Elon Musk that I said before. You go with the rocket and you stay in the rocket.
No.
So you don't have to go anywhere else. You don't have to build anything. You just stay in the rocket. It saves time, saves money, saves structure, saves space.
Enjoy.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, if you want to be there permanently, you will need structures on the surface,
Yes.
right? So there are many options. One option that we will do probably at the beginning is to go into the lava tubes. So the moon used to be a very high volcanic environment. You know that volcano on Earth, they erupt, and then sometimes the lava forms canals deep the ground. So that's what you have on the moon. You have giant caverns and holes where you can live much more easily, because when you live underground, there is less radiation. The temperature is much higher, you can stabilize it, and you can pressurize the environment. So you can even have breathable oxygen there. So at the beginning, maybe the first humans will be more safe underground. But underground is not as cool as if you sleep on the surface and you wake up and you see the Earth, right? So there are companies and there are entities like the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the European Space Agency who are working on the Moon Village. And so the idea is to build human habitats on the surface of the moon, where you can, in the South Pole, on the Shackleton crater on the edge, and from there you can see the Earthrise, which is the famous picture that Michael Collins took, that you have the Earth coming from Earth. You know, on Earth we see the sunrise, on the moon you see the Earthrise. You see the Earth coming in your view. And so that's where we want to have hotels, but that will take some time. It will take time because we want to be...
How long? How much time?
Probably, as I said, around 10 years to be ready.
10 years?
Yeah.
Only 10 years.
Yes.
So it's a little period.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little, yeah, if you think about it in long terms, it's
Yes,
fine.
yes.
10 years is the bare minimum because we need to be sure that technology is safe.
Yes.
And then in 10 years, hopefully we will be able also to use the regolith on the moon to build facilities that are radiation shield, because the lunar regolith is very resistant to radiation. So instead of bringing materials from Earth, which is very expensive, we will use what's already on the moon. So we are working on technologies that can transform the lunar regolith into concrete to make buildings. And you will laugh, but this is something that they are investigating. There is one project funded, I think, by NASA. I'm not sure, but probably is NASA. I don't know what space agency exactly. That will use human urine, to turn regolith into concrete.
Oh.
So if you combine regolith with urine, the chemical reaction is very good. It sticks, and the regolith becomes more malleable, and then it's a perfect match to protect from radiation and reduce the toxicity, because regolith is also toxic. So you don't want to breathe regolith. If you breathe regolith, you will die, because it's very, very small. It will go into your lungs, and not good. So what we need to ensure is that we use the regolith to protect from the radiation, but we don't die because of the regolith. So the urine is a great chemical component to make sure that the regolith is solid and doesn't break in pieces that will kill the astronauts. So these are the type of crazy technologies we're trying to study.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
How many degrees on the moon?
It depends where you are. So there are different areas on the moon. On average, it's rather cold, but when you are under the sun, it's very hot. So
how many degrees?
So we go, I think the temperature in the permanently shadowed region is about minus 100 Celsius.
Minus 100?
Yes.
Oh.
From minus 100 to minus 60.
I guess it's colder than Russia.
Yeah, colder than Siberia.
Really?
But when you go into the permanently illuminated areas where the sun is going directly there, then it's plus 90, something like that.
90.
Yes,
Oh.
super hot as well. So like there is a very strong excursion, and then when it's lunar night, completely dark, it goes even lower. It goes even lower than minus 100 or something. So like the temperature is one of the issues, but we can fix that, because when you have spacesuits,
Yeah, sure.
you can control the temperature in there, so that's okay. The main issue with the temperature is for the machines. because the machines need to work in a certain temperature environment. So when it's too cold, they will not work, and when it's too hot, they will break. And at the same time, you need power, and to create power, you also need a stable environment in order to make sure that everything works. So like the temperature is an issue not for the humans, but for the machines. We're trying to work to build materials and metals that can work in different extreme environmental conditions. But the most hard part is to resist the night, because the night is very, very cold.
Oh, more colder, yes?
It's
Than 100.
Yes, it's super cold. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful tree.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you need to bring a lot of clothes.
Yes, sure. So, and would you like to visit by yourself?
Of course, that would actually be one of my dreams, to go to the moon myself. I think it's something that I always had in my heart and in my mind, and something that I feel every human should do. Actually, I think every human should go to the moon.
Really,
everyone.
But
once, not all together, not all at the same time.
Why not?
There is not enough space. There is no space.
Like on the subway.
Yeah, exactly.
But not everybody can go there because of some health reason.
True, huh? In fact, of course, I'm not saying that everybody is obliged to go,
yes.
But I would really hope for all humans, or the people that can go safely, because then you will see Earth from a different perspective.
Sure.
That's the matter, you know. When you go to space, this is what astronauts tell us. You feel the planet as one thing, you know. The first words of Yuri Gagarin, and this year we celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Yuri Gagarin first human space flight. The first word that he said during his flight, he was like, "I'm fine, I'm well, I see Earth, it's beautiful." You see? And so imagine he was just in orbit. When you go to the moon, you see the entire planet in this vast darkness of space. And then I'm sure that if all humans would go to the moon, this may sound cheesy, but there would be no conflicts anymore. Because you realize that we really are one planet, one species, one destiny. And on Earth you don't see it, because you see boundaries, you see borders, you see countries, companies, people that hate each other. But when you go there and you see how lucky we are to be in this planet, to be alive in these days, that we can actually go to space and see each other from there, then everything is so secondary. It doesn't really matter anymore, right?
So it's a very romantic dream.
Yes.
You want to work there on the moon, or just travel and see this big, romantic, beautiful space?
So it's not an easy question, in the sense that obviously, first of all, travel there, and even being there one day, it would be amazing, right? What would I do there depends on how advanced we are on our lunar exploration programs. So if there is going to be a presence on the moon, people permanently staying there, they will need somebody that knows the law, that can coordinate and can ensure that everyone is doing his job peacefully. And so this is what I would do, what I would like to do. It depends if they trust me with the job. It's not a very easy job. But what I would do is this, being there and helping everyone to do their part so that everyone is safe and everyone is happy. And how long can I stay? It's a matter of health. So nobody should permanently stay on the moon too long until we find out what it does to your body and we're sure that you're gonna be fine coming back. Because there is not only a problem of radiation. We spoke about radiation, right? Yeah. But that's just one of the things. Another thing is that on Earth, our body is made based on gravity. We have been influenced by gravity, right? So your heart pumps because there is gravity. Because if your heart doesn't pump, the blood will not go anyway. It will just go down and you will die. On the moon and in space, the gravity is much different, right? There is no gravity in space and there is little gravity on the moon. So the human body is very lazy. If there is no incentive to pump the blood, the heart will stop doing it. Because it will say, why do I have to make all this effort if the blood is just going on its own? So you go on the moon, you stay there 1 year, your heart adjusts to a different pumping rate. And so when you come back on Earth, your heart is smaller and it's weaker. And so if you stay too long on the moon and you come suddenly on Earth without anything in between, you could die. Because your heart is not adjust anymore, and then you will die of a heart attack, right? So what do we do to counterface this? You imagine that, because it's your expertise, you do workout in space. Astronauts spend 3 hours of workout every day in the International Space Station, and on the moon it will be the same. You will need to work out to make sure that your heart, your muscles, your bones, they are all still doing their job. They're not relaxing.
Yes.
They cannot relax, because if they relax, you come back on Earth, you cannot walk anymore, you cannot breathe. It's going to be a lot of issues, right? So that's why we need to figure these things out, and then I can tell you how long I can stay on the moon. So for the first time, maybe a couple of days back to Earth, and then longer we will need to find out a whole routine so that we protect health again.
That these exercises should be stronger, harder, longer,
So
or like on the moon or
Right.
on the Earth.
it depends on the physics of your body. So first of all, it will be kind of the same, but not the same for everybody. When you go to the moon, you will train more than 1 year before. For instance, there is a Japanese billionaire who bought a ticket with SpaceX to go to the moon, and he's not even landing on the moon. He's just doing orbit, right? And he's already here in Russia training at the Cosmonaut Center to prepare his body to go to the moon. And he's probably flying in 2 years. So, of course, he's a billionaire, he has nothing to do, so he can just go and train. Normal humans will have to start probably 1 year before and continue training before, during, and after. On the international space stations, astronauts train, as I said, 3 hours per day. They do different workouts, 3 hours. They do all sorts of workouts to ensure that the muscles are there. They do running, they do jogging, they do exercise with.
How they doing it?
They have instruments. If you Google it, you will find a lot of videos that shows you how to exercise on the ISS. Every astronaut does it every day. There is no stop, because if they stop, when they're back on Earth, they have problems. So they have to do it.
So they have cardio
Yeah,
exercises,
cardio.
like running and others, and so 1 hour, yes, and so other 2 hours.
I don't know if how exactly it's divided, but I can tell you that in total it's 3 hours, and they do cardio, they do muscle resistance, and they do stretching as well to make sure that the muscles, again, they stay as if they were on Earth. That's the thing. That's why they have to train constantly to feel the pressure in the body. Otherwise, again, they will just relax. And even when they do that, when they land, if you see video of astronauts landing, they have to stay sit for a couple of hours, because of course the blood needs to flow again.
Yeah.
So like when you sit and you arrive on Earth, they will take you from the spaceship and they will put you on a chair, and you stay there firm and put and wait for a couple of hours until you're fine, and then you can walk. Because if you would try to walk, you would just fall down because all the blood immediately to the feet.
Yes.
So it's important that you don't die because your brain is without,
Yes.
right?
Without
So that's what you need. And they're training 3 hours per day. Imagine if they wouldn't train. Imagine.
Yes,
When Gagarin was sent to space, we had no idea. No idea. And when he came out, because it was only like a couple of minutes, it was fine. But we learned in time, right? And so now we have all the technology to make sure that we're fine. But it took some time.
Great. Really great.
Yeah, you will love it. If you Google it, really, you find a lot. NASA is sharing a lot of this information, so you find videos of astronauts explaining that. You find research. There are a lot of papers written, articles that explain you how the physics of the body work on space.
And what about nutrition?
Nutrition is very important as well. I can show you one picture. So I don't know if you've ever been to the Museum of Cosmonauts here in St. Petersburg.
Yes.
If you go there, they will show you this machine, which is the restaurant machine that the cosmonauts have in the ISS.
I saw it, yes.
Right? So how does it work is basically that everything has in can, and most of it is pressurized, or it needs to be filled with water again. So like these machines, they basically readjust the water, and then they prepare it. So this is the basics. But then of course you can try and be a little bit more advanced when you do that. One thing is, for instance, that Samantha Cristoforetti, the Italian astronaut that went on the ISS 2 years ago, and she will be back next year as the first woman commander of the International Space Station from Europe. She grew strawberries.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Yes. She managed to grow strawberries, and they still have the strawberries that she planted. And of course, you grow vegetables, and especially hydroponic vegetables. They grow in very hostile conditions, and so the main food comes from these type of things. But to this day, we have to send refurbishment to the ISS in order to make sure that the astronauts get the food. So there is a cargo ship that goes there. I'm not sure exactly, but probably every couple of months, filled with food and coffee.
Yes, coffee,
Because
of course.
Italians, when we went to the International Space Station, we thought like there is something missing here. There is no coffee. So Lavazza, in partnership with Thales Alenia, I think, and Leonardo and the Italian Space Agency, built the first coffee machine that works in space.
Oh, really?
You can Google it. It's very nice.
Italians are great guys.
And
Coffee even in the space.
we try to be creative, and not even the machine was necessary. You also needed a special glass, because that's one of the other issue. In space and on the ISS, there is no gravity, or there's very little gravity. So, if you have a cup,
Yes.
the liquid will not stay in the cup.
Yes,
It will
sure.
just
It will
right.
fly, yeah.
But so of course you can drink your coffee like in a way that it's just injected, or you can just fill it from.
Injected?
You can also do that, yeah.
Coffee injected?
I'm joking, but you believe it for a moment.
For a moment, yeah. I believe it. Like, whoa, so great idea. Coffee injected?
No, you can do it
I
with.
will try.
You can do it in the traditional way with the cans, but it's not the same, right? You want to drink a nice coffee from your glass, and so we invented a special cup that works in space, so that you can actually drink the coffee.
Yes.
And so we had to build the machine, we had to build the cup, but now you have coffee in space, and the astronauts, they love it. Because of course it's one of the few things that reminds them of Earth.
First, busy work days.
Yeah.
Yes, about all
And so
this.
you take a coffee and you
Yes.
remember, you feel more connected to the other humans on the planet.
And what type of coffee? Italian, I guess?
Of course, espresso.
Of course.
Only
No
espresso.
other way.
No way. We build the machine, so you know.
Oh, it's really great. Great topic. And they have workouts 3 hours per day, so they should have more nutrition, more
Yes.
than on the Earth. So, how much do you know?
No, I don't know exactly the quantities, but I can tell you that they adjust it to the exercise level that they do. So of course they have proper food, and most of the time they eat food that is already concentrated, so they don't need big size because everything is compacted.
Yes.
And so it's very high level nutrition type of food that they eat. It's very healthy food. They don't need junk food on the ISS. because
Wonderful.
There is
No
no,
junk food.
there is no space for that. We don't want to waste space for junk food. We only want the smaller as possible, but the more nutrient as possible. So that's what we do. And vodka.
Vodka.
There are rumors that there is a special place on the International Space Station where Russian astronauts, they put vodka.
Really?
These are rumors. I never been confirmed, but there are rumors that in some Soyuz there is a special scompark where you have the vodka, and then sometimes when cosmonauts want to relax, they drink the vodka. But this is just a rumor, popular legend, urban legend.
Okay, unofficial legend.
Yeah, not very official, but who knows? I mean, we brought the coffee. Why not the vodka?
When you want to do your first trip to the moon?
Me?
Yes, you, especially
Good question. I will do it tomorrow, but that doesn't depend on me.
from St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I can go
Why
instead
not?
of going to the airport. I go to Kazakhstan and then I just leave. But that's not gonna happen tomorrow. But hopefully in the next decade. So between 2030, 2040, maybe. Because of course, again, the first times we're gonna send engineers, we're gonna send scientists, we're gonna send doctors, a lot of doctors. So the lawyers will come a little bit later.
Yeah.
So that's why I will have to wait. But hopefully, if we're fast enough, maybe 2030, 2040, maximum 2050. So when I will be in my 50s, maximum, which is still okay. How much time do you have to train? The bare minimum would be starting slowly 1 year in advance, but then you intensify in the month before the launch. So the first thing that you need to do is to get used to the acceleration gravity. So 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, because when the rocket goes up, you feel a lot of pressure, and so you need to test yourself, because otherwise you'll just cover everything in volume. And so you need to do that. That is the most important one, to see also if you actually can hold the pressure or you will collapse. So that's one thing. And then the rest obviously is bonus, but these are the basics. The astronauts also train longer because they don't go there for fun. They go there to do science, right? So they need to learn how to manage the instruments. They need to learn how to manage the capsule, and so it takes time. But if I'm going there as a lawyer, I don't have to touch anything. You know, I will tell the people to touch things. So like, I will need much less training because I will not perform any experiment. The only thing I have to do is with my brain, and so that is already trained. Would you come?
Me? Of course.
Yeah?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow as well. thank you for having me. This was really nice. I want to thank everyone who's watching. And I would like to maybe conclude with a couple of thoughts that I would like to emphasize. So the first one is that space is important for everybody. So keep this in mind. When you look at the television, when you look at the programs, don't think that space is something distant. Think that space is something that has an impact on your life. And that is something hopefully that you like, something exciting, something that is for the best of humankind. And so be passionate about it. Think about a career in space. Think about how can you help humanity in the journey to space, because it's the best journey that we can always have. It's the toughest but also most exciting challenge in the history of humankind. Imagine being the people that are able to design a human environment on the moon, being those that will design a starship going to Mars. These things are happening now, and we need young people especially. We need people of our age to be passionate about this, and we need you to take initiative. So in Space Generation Advisory Council, we try as much as possible to help the young generations to be involved at all levels. So if you Google Space Generation Advisory Council, you will find our website. You can become a member for free online. We have Russian point of contact. You can engage with people that live here in this country, and then you can meet with each other, and then you can participate. You can find your way, and I would encourage you to do that. And if you would like to support the work that we're doing with the moon, please Google E.A.G.L.E report or E.A.G.L.E documents, anything that is with E.A.G.L.E and SJC.
All links will be in video also.
Yeah, great. And so you can find, there is a little box that you can fill your name and become an advocate. So we're looking for people that would like to participate in our project, that would like to sponsor it, that would like to support it. And so if you think that the young generation should be heard concerning the use of the moon, then one thing that you can help us is if you go, you put your name and you become one of our advocates. We would really appreciate it, and we will acknowledge your name in a list of other people that will show how much the young generation care for the use of the moon, and that they want to be involved, and that they have ideas, and that they are active. And so this is my message for you. I hope you enjoy this interview. And of course, if you want to know more, you can always write me. I can share my email with you. You can again join SJC, and then the journey will be just begun. So please keep in mind also another thing, which is no matter what rhetoric you hear in the television, space is for everyone, and space is the province of all humankind. So although there are sometimes tensions, there is more cooperation in space than everywhere on Earth. So when you think about space, always think about what can we do for humanity and for our brothers and sisters on Earth, because that's what really matters. And so especially in these times of COVID, when life seems very hard and we've been through hell, now it's time to restart. And so being Italian, I would like to conclude with a quote from a famous Italian poet, Dante Alighieri. So Dante Alighieri wrote the Divina Commedia, which is the journey of Dante through hell, then purgatory, and then heaven. And so at the beginning he had to go through hell, and he had a very difficult time there, but he held up, he resisted, and then he went out. And so he went out and he emerged from hell to see the stars again. And so hopefully we will all emerge as well to see the stars again.